The scent of polished mahogany and stale antiseptic clung to Martha Baker, a woman whose life had been a series of carefully managed misfortunes, at least according to the hushed whispers of the social elite. Her son, David Miller, a tech magnate whose name graced philanthropic galas and Forbes covers, had built an empire from the ground up, a testament to his ruthless ambition and brilliant mind. Yet, for all his power and wealth, David remained tethered to the spectral presence of his mother's perpetual illness, a condition that had shadowed their lives for 3 decades. Martha, a woman in her late 57s, was a picture of delicate frailty, her skin almost translucent, her eyes often clouded with a weariness that spoke of years battling an unseen enemy. Her medical chart was a tome, filled with diagnoses ranging from rare autoimmune disorders to chronic fatigue syndrome, each new ailment adding another layer to the enigma of her declining health. The Miller estate, a sprawling testament to old money and modern design, felt less like a home and more like a high-end medical facility equipped with a live-in nurse, a rotating cast of specialists, and an emergency response team on call 24/7. David, a man in his late 39s, bore the weight of his mother's suffering with a stoic resolve that hinted at deep-seated anxieties. He adored his mother, and his vast fortune was primarily dedicated to ensuring her comfort and finding a cure, no matter the cost. His current fiancée, a dazzlingly beautiful and impeccably poised socialite named Jessica Sanchez, a woman in her early 31s, moved through the house with an air of efficient grace, managing Martha's appointments and prescriptions with a meticulousness that bordered on obsessive. Jessica often spoke of her devotion to Martha, a commitment that David openly admired, mistaking her calculated care for genuine affection. Into this meticulously constructed world stepped Matthew Gonzalez, a seasoned firefighter in his early 43s, whose rugged exterior hid a deeply empathetic soul and an uncanny knack for observation. Matthew wasn't usually in the business of personal care, but a chance encounter at a charity event had led David to offer him a temporary high-paying position as Martha's personal security and wellness liaison, a vague title for someone David hoped could bring a fresh perspective, a kind of grounded common sense that felt increasingly absent amidst the medical jargon and sophisticated procedures. Matthew, accustomed to analyzing volatile situations and identifying hidden dangers, immediately sensed an unsettling undercurrent beneath the veneer of luxury and concern. He wasn't a doctor, but his years of responding to emergencies had given him an acute understanding of human physiology and the subtle signs of distress. He noticed the faint, almost imperceptible tremor in Martha's hands when she held a glass of water, the way her gaze would drift off into the distance as if battling an invisible foe, and the peculiar odor that sometimes emanated from her fortified nutrient elixirs prepared religiously by Jessica, a concoction Martha was instructed to consume 3 times a day. The formula, according to Jessica, was a proprietary blend from a renowned European clinic, essential for Martha's delicate constitution. Matthew, whose olfactory senses were finely tuned from years of smelling smoke and chemicals, found the scent vaguely metallic, almost acrid, a stark contrast to the healthy, earthy aroma one might expect from a nutrient supplement. He also couldn't help but notice the peculiar tension in the air whenever Jessica was around. Martha, a subtle shift in the older woman's usually placid demeanor, a flicker of something akin to fear in her eyes that quickly, vanished under Jessica's reassuring smile. One crisp autumn afternoon, as Matthew observed Martha attempting to read in the sun-drenched conservatory, a sudden wave of nausea overcame her. She clutched her stomach, her face palling rapidly before a fit of dry retching sent her scrambling for a basin. Jessica, ever present, rushed to her side with a practiced calm, murmuring soothing words while simultaneously casting a sharp, almost imperceptible glance at Matthew. "Just a common stomach bug, Matthew," Jessica declared with a dismissive wave of her hand. Martha's system is incredibly sensitive, but Matthew wasn't convinced. He had seen enough people with stomach bugs. This felt different, more systemic, more insidious. He also noted that Martha seemed to recover remarkably quickly after these episodes, only to relapse again with striking regularity. It was a pattern he began to track in his mind, a disconcerting rhythm to Martha's suffering. He began to subtly question the household staff, particularly in Evans, the long-serving housekeeper, a woman in her late 68s with a kind face and tired eyes. The more Matthew observed, the more the pieces clicked into an unsettling mosaic. He noticed how Jessica meticulously controlled Martha's diet, often preparing her special meals herself, despite the presence of a highly skilled private chef. He saw the way Jessica deflected any suggestion of a second opinion from outside doctors, always emphasizing the unique and complex nature of Martha's illness, implying that only their carefully selected team of specialists truly understood her condition. He subtly retrieved an empty bottle from the recycling bin, noting the faint, lingering metallic aroma. He then contacted an old friend, a forensic chemist named Michelle Lee, who specialized in environmental toxins. Without revealing his suspicions, Matthew simply described the odor and asked if it was indicative of anything unusual. Michelle, intrigued, asked him to send a small sample if he could safely obtain one. The next day, feigning a clumsy spill, Matthew managed to accidentally knock over one of Martha's freshly prepared elixirs, collecting a minuscule amount on a pristine white handkerchief before Jessica could intervene. The act was swift and subtle, executed with the precision of a firefighter navigating a smoke-filled room. Jessica, visibly annoyed, quickly cleaned up the mess, lecturing Matthew about the preciousness of the formula, unaware of the small, almost invisible stain on his handkerchief. As days turned into weeks, Martha's condition seemed to worsen, her energy levels plummeting, her periods of lucidity becoming shorter and more infrequent. David, increasingly distraught, began to spend more time by her bedside, his face etched with worry. Jessica, in turn, became even more controlling, her watchful eyes missing nothing. She would often stand in the doorway of Martha's room, observing Matthew with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Matthew knew he was walking a tightrope, every move scrutinized. He couldn't risk alarming David or Jessica, not yet. He needed concrete proof, something undeniable. He thought back to Laura, the nurse who had left abruptly, and wondered what she had seen, what suspicions she had harbored. He decided to track her down, hoping she could shed some light on the pattern of Martha's illnesses. His investigation, initially motivated by professional concern, was now fueled by a growing sense of dread, a primal instinct warning him that something deeply sinister was unfolding within the opulent walls of the Miller estate. The stakes were incredibly high. He was dealing with a powerful family, a wealthy fiancée, and a mother whose life hung precariously in the balance. The truth, he suspected, was far more disturbing than a rare disease. The sample of the nutrient shake, carefully packaged, reached Michelle Lee's lab within 48 hours. Matthew spent the intervening time in a heightened state of surveillance, his firefighter's instincts screaming a silent alarm. Martha's condition dipped further. She was now confined mostly to bed. Her appetite vanished, and the reddish-purple rash that had appeared subtly on her torso was now a mottled, persistent irritation. The tension between Matthew and Jessica was now a palpable force. She watched him like a hawk, questioning his every movement, particularly his increased interactions with an Evans, and his unexplained absences from the estate when he was actually meeting Laura Perez, the former nurse. Laura, a woman in her late 28s now working in a small provincial clinic, was initially hesitant to speak, fearing the powerful reach of the Miller family, but Matthew's sincere intensity and his detailed description of Martha's worsening symptoms broke through her reserve. She confirmed Matthew's suspicions, revealing that she had meticulously documented her observations in a small, leather-bound journal, inconsistent pulse rates following the morning elixir, unexplained moments of confusion, and, crucially, her discovery of a specialized, unlabeled syringe hidden in Jessica's private medical cabinet, a syringe she suspected was used to introduce something into the formula before serving. Laura's notes also detailed Jessica's extreme efforts to isolate Martha, insisting on administering all the critical doses herself, even when other nurses were present. This confirmation solidified Matthew's worst fears. Martha wasn't suffering from an organic disease. She was being systematically poisoned. The official report from Michelle arrived, encrypted via email, the technical language starkly confirming the horrifying reality. The formula contained minute cumulative traces of thallium, a heavy metal commonly found in certain rodenticides and historically known as inheritance powder due to its untraceable symptoms that mimic severe viral infections or neurological disorders. The dosage was incredibly low, designed to cause chronic, irreversible decline rather than an immediate, suspicious fatality. It was a slow, calculated act of murder, stretching over years. Matthew felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. He was holding proof of a heinous crime being committed under the Millionaire's own roof. And the perpetrator, he was certain, was Jessica. The motivation was clearly financial. David devoted entirely to his mother, had never seriously considered marriage until Martha's health had reached a crisis point. Her passing would not only secure Jessica's place as the sole object of David's attention, but potentially accelerate her control over the family trust, which had significant clauses tied to Martha's living status. With the evidence secured on a password-protected flash drive, Matthew knew he couldn't simply go to the police yet. Jessica was too entrenched, too good at manipulation, and any premature action could result in Martha receiving a fatal, immediate dose or Matthew himself being framed and discredited. He needed David to see the truth. But David, blinded by love and exhaustion, was the hardest person to reach. The crucial turning point came during a tense interaction in the master suite. Jessica had prepared the evening elixir and insisted on administering it. But Matthew, citing a new fictional security protocol requiring him to witness all critical medical procedures, positioned himself between her and Martha. Jessica's eyes flashed with annoyance. A momentary break in her perfect focus. As she leaned over to give Martha the bottle, she accidentally dropped a small, decorative silver locket that she always wore, a family heirloom David had given her. While she bent down to retrieve it, Matthew, in a lightning-fast movement honed by years of emergency training, swiftly swapped the prepared formula with an identical harmless replacement. He carried hidden in his cargo pocket a swap so quick and smooth it was invisible to the naked eye. Jessica rose, handed the safe bottle to Martha, and gave Matthew a saccharine smile. Later that night, observing the undisturbed poisoned bottle he had retrieved, Matthew realized he had to act fast. His substitution had only bought them a few hours. He decided to leave the estate, taking the evidence in his journal, and try to contact David from a secure, neutral location. But as he packed his meager belongings, he was intercepted by a frantic and desperate Frank Campbell, the longtime head of security, a man in his late 59s known for his loyalty to the Miller family. Frank, trembling, showed Matthew a photo, a fabricated image of Matthew attempting to sell confidential Miller family documents to a tabloid reporter, an image Jessica had obviously prepared as a contingency. She knew. Matthew, Frank whispered, his voice cracking. She's been setting you up for weeks, preparing a narrative that you were only here to extract secrets. Frank, who had served the family for over 25 years, was conflicted. He couldn't defy David, but his loyalty to Martha was stronger. He revealed that Jessica had just informed David that Matthew was being fired immediately and was being escorted off the premises by local police for suspected corporate espionage and attempted extortion. Matthew realized he had minutes. He knew he couldn't leave Martha to die, even if it meant becoming a fugitive. He had one advantage. He knew the hidden tunnels beneath the estate, emergency routes designed during an old renovation. He quickly secured the evidence, the flash drive and Laura's journal, and gave Frank a coded message to pass to David once the immediate chaos subsided. The address of a remote cabin retreat in the outer, a place Matthew knew David went to during periods of intense stress. A place only David truly knew about. Ignoring the shouts of the approaching private security team, Matthew slipped into Martha's room. She was frail, barely lucid, but her eyes fluttered open when he touched her hand. He didn't try to explain. There wasn't time. He wrapped the sick woman gently in a heavy cashmere blanket, his movements sufficient and tender. As he carried her out of the room, he saw Jessica standing in the hallway, flanked by 2 armed guards, a triumphant, cold smile gracing her perfect lips. "You won't get far, fireman," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "You've just kidnapped the heiress." Ignoring her, Matthew sprinted toward the back utility hallway. The sounds of alarm bells and shouting echoed through the mansion as he descended into the cold, dark maintenance tunnels, clutching. Martha tight, knowing he had just exchanged his secure life for a perilous life-or-death mission to save the woman who had unknowingly become his charge. He was now a wanted man, running from the law, and a killer inexpensive couture, his only hope resting on David's ability to decode his message and choose truth over deception. If you've ever been gripped by the intensity of Matthew's race against time and his sacrifice to save Martha, you're experiencing the emotional core of this story. Don't miss out on how this complex web of deceit is finally untangled. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you can catch the final explosive block and see who else was complicit in Jessica's cruel plan. Tell me, what do you think was the asterisk reason David never suspected Jessica? Was it genuine love? Or was he intentionally kept too busy and stressed to notice the manipulation right under his nose? Share your opinion in the comments below. Matthew drove relentlessly through the night, the weight of Martha's fragile body a constant, terrifying reminder of the race against time. He reached the remote Adirondack cabin, a rustic, stone structure nestled deep in the pines just as the first pale light of dawn broke. Martha, slipping in and out of consciousness, was burning with a low fever, the thallium relentlessly attacking her system. Matthew, drawing upon his basic first aid training and Laura's notes, administered what supportive care he could, desperately trying to keep her hydrated and comfortable while simultaneously waiting for David's call. He knew the police would soon be hunting him for kidnapping, but he also knew that every second counted. Hours later, the silence of the woods was shattered by the sound of a powerful engine. David Miller emerged from a sleek black SUV, his face a mask of exhaustion, confusion, and raw fury. Frank had successfully delivered the coded message, hinting of foul play and Matthew's innocence. And David, clinging to a sliver of hope, had rushed to the only place he felt safe. David immediately demanded an explanation, his voice sharp with betrayal. Torn between the police report describing Matthew as a criminal and the desperate plea from his loyal head of security, Matthew didn't waste a moment on apologies or he laid out the evidence with the concise, factual efficiency of a firefighter detailing a hazard report, the encrypted lab results showing the thallium poisoning, Laura's meticulous journal detailing Jessica's isolation tactics, and the unlabeled syringe, and the account of the staged theft to discredit him. He then presented the final, damning piece of evidence, a small, concealed microphone he had planted near the master kitchen where Jessica prepared the elixirs, which had captured a hushed, damning conversation between Jessica and her accomplice. The accomplice, to David's utter shock, was not Frank, but Alexander Turner, the trusted family attorney. On the recording, Jessica calmly detailed her years-long plan, how she had intentionally used the rare symptoms of thallium to baffle doctors and gain David as complete dependence, and how she intended to have Martha declared mentally incapacitated and then deceased shortly after the wedding, securing the control of the trust. Alexander, his voice heavy with resignation on the tape, confirmed that he helped Jessica because she had threatened to expose a decades-old corporate scandal involving David's late father, a scandal that would have ruined the Miller legacy entirely. He was caught between protecting the family's name and watching Martha die. David listened, his face draining of color, the full weight of the betrayal crashing down on him. The woman he was about to marry, the man who managed his legal affairs, both were calculating criminals. The emotional depth of his realization, the shame, the anger, the devastating sense of having been utterly blind was overwhelming. While David was on the phone with the police, directing them to intercept Jessica before she could flee the country, Matthew made a startling discovery. Examining a box of Martha's sentimental items that she kept in the cabin, Matthew found a tarnished silver baby bracelet engraved with the name Jamie and the year he was born, 1982. Suddenly, the strange, proprietary affection he felt for Martha clicked into place. The day he had been orphaned in a house fire when he was 4 years old, Martha, then named Linda Williams, had been the young neighbor who pulled him out of the blaze, a traumatic memory he had suppressed for years. She was the woman who had saved his life. The trauma of the fire, leading her to leave town and change her name to Martha, a move to escape the unwanted fame and the emotional fallout. Martha, weak but lucid for a moment, looked at the silver bracelet he held, and then at him, her eyes filling with tears. "Jamie, you found me," she whispered, confirming the shared past and the deep, unspoken connection that had drawn him to her. Matthew wasn't just a bodyguard. He was the child she had saved, the connection that fate had brought back to save her in return. The police arrived swiftly. Jessica and Alexander were apprehended before they could flee, and Alexander, the attorney, quickly confessed his involvement and motive. The evidence was irrefutable. Martha was rushed to a specialized hospital where the diagnosis of acute thallium poisoning was officially confirmed, allowing doctors to begin chelation therapy. 6 months passed. Martha made a slow but steady recovery. The thallium was purged from her system, and the rare disorders that had plagued her for years vanished completely. The Miller estate underwent a profound cleansing. David, emotionally shattered but fundamentally changed, recognized the need to heal not only his mother but also his own life. He took responsibility for his blindness and established the Linda Williams Foundation, named after his mother's true self, dedicated to funding research into slow-acting toxins and supporting victims of medical abuse. Matthew no longer Jamie the firefighter, but Matthew Gonzalez, the man who had uncovered the secret, became David's trusted partner, heading the foundation's security and operations. He and Martha, now calling him her miracle son, rebuilt their relationship, healing the scars of their shared, suppressed past. The story became a testament to the fact that money and power can blind, but the simple, clear eyes of an outsider, someone who deals in objective danger like fire, can spot the subtle, insidious threat hidden in plain sight. David learned that genuine care is not about paying for the most expensive treatment, but about paying attention, and that true family is often found in the most unexpected and life-saving moments. Martha, now healthy and vibrant, reclaimed her life, finally free from the toxic cloud that had shadowed her for decades. The injustice was overcome by truth, and the abandonment of the past was replaced by a powerful, unbreakable, new beginning. We hope you felt the full emotional force of this story, the betrayal, the danger, and the ultimate victory of truth and family bonds. If you enjoyed this journey, please join our community by subscribing. We love connecting with our viewers and sharing more stories like this. Tell us in the comments which city you are watching our stories from. Did you like this video? And what lesson did you learn from Matthew's unwavering conviction? Share your thoughts below.